This is Unleashing the Potential of Innovation, brought to you by Syngenta. Coming up in the next 90 minutes, we'll be talking about innovation and its place when we're talking about sustainable food systems. We'll be talking about biopesticides, biodiversity, and new genomic techniques. We have a packed 90 minutes. I am your moderator, Femi OK, but you will also meet so many experts with so much knowledge. This is why we are part of Solutions Week. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a question box. Please use it. We are not here to talk to ourselves. We would love to talk to you. We would love you to talk to us. Use that Q&A box so you can be part of today's event. Welcome, everybody. Looking forward to having you be part of this conversation. First of all, let's set the scene. What part does innovation play when it comes to sustainable food systems? I'm going to bring in Robert Renwick. We're going to also speak to Pedro Gallardo Barrena and also Anna Caricondo. But first, Robert, your career with Syngenta, what anniversary are you celebrating now this year?
It'll be 34 at the end of the year. So I've spent over 30 years in the company, and I've worked in a range of places. Obviously, I'm British, but I've worked in Latin America, in Chile and Brazil, and then latterly in Italy. And I've spent the last 11 years in Spain. And I was the managing director of the Iberia business for the last 4 years, where I had the opportunity to meet Pedro and Anna, who are on our panel this afternoon.
Absolutely. So with that long history in Syngenta, what is your title now? Because that really helps us set the scene for when we're looking at this idea of innovation and delivering food systems, sustainable food systems. Your title is what now, Robert?
Okay, I'm the head of business sustainability for Europe, Africa, Middle East. So a very big region with some very different problems and issues, but one big issue right now, which is around food security, which everybody is sort of thinking about and seeing in real time. And I suppose my job is to support farmers, grow high quality crops sustainably, and really to help provide the innovation and the framework for innovation to accelerate the pace and take up of new technologies in farming.
So you started out as a young man in R&D department, so you must have seen so many innovations, so much progress. But when we look at what is happening now in terms of innovation, sustainability, and what Syngenta is doing, what do you make of this latest crop of innovative ideas?
Well, I think they're great. They're part of what we would call a modern toolbox. We've got great crop protection products of the traditional sort, but we've also got a very long pipeline of new products in that area. But also now coming through our biopesticides, which are naturally occurring substances, but which can be used to control pests and diseases on farms. We've got new techniques for breeding seeds, new breeding techniques, which actually can produce seeds which are resistant to drought, to heat, and the type of problems which farmers are facing every day in real life. And I'm sure Pedro will talk about this. Also, though, digital solutions. I think it's true to say everybody's got a smartphone these days, and if you get into the cab of a tractor these days, it's almost like being in a spaceship. It's full of screens, maybe 6, 7, 8 screens in a typical tractor. But farmers these days are digital. They're connected online, and they're really managing their farms from their phones.
I want to bring in, talking about farmers, I want to bring in Pedro. Pedro, hello, it's really great to have you here. Robert, don't go away, but I'm going to talk to Pedro for a moment. Pedro, would you introduce yourself to our audience today who are looking for unleashing the power of innovation? We'd love to hear the farmer's perspective. Introduce yourself, Pedro. Hello.
Well, many thanks, Femi, for to be here. It's a pleasure for me to be in the Forum for Agriculture and invitation from Syngenta. Well, I think it's important that for every farmer, whether it is today a modern family or a farmer who was opening 100 years ago, we are always looking for the best solution, innovation, reap what we sow. As a third generation farmer, for me, it's mean that combining the knowledge and I have to absorb from my family with the new solution to tackle the problem we have experienced with the pest or environmental change, which can reduce the harvest and our potential production. And to find solution to these problems, we depend on innovation solutions, of course, in terms of the crop rotation, but also in the term of the how we approach to the growing, what is very important also for us.
Pedro, I'm just wondering. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm just wondering what you take from your 3 generations of farming, what you take from your um, relatives, your the generations of farming, and then how you merge that with new innovation. Is that difficult for you to do, or is it very very easy for you to just see what new can help, and old methods can also be incredibly helpful too.
Yes, of course. We have to take our knowledge from our grandparents, parents, etc. Because it's a lot of knowledge, and of course we try to combine all of this knowledge with the new technology, what we can use now in the farming. Like Robert said, many screens in the tractor, connectivity to internet, and of course for me it was a good challenge because I'm producing sunflower in 25 years ago, and we try to change how to produce sunflower, and we move from planting sunflower in the month of April to plant sunflower in January, when people think I was crazy because frozen, etc. No, I can produce higher productivity, double yields, using technology, protection of the plant, using tools. At the end, we need tools. Using without irrigation, without water, we could have same yields than another farmers with irrigation. And of course, by about the sustainability, we our partridge nest can be in the land of the sunflower. That if I plant sunflower too late, for example, in April or May, it's not possible. So it's important to try to have new approaches to have more solutions to develop the farmer, and of course the different use of the technology, because we have the climate change, and of course the new green techniques is a part of the solution. We need this technology to produce in a different way.
What do you think, Pedro, would most surprise your forefathers? That they, if you took them around the farm today, that they would just be astounded by. When we talk about progressive techniques, what is the sort of wow factor that you're seeing right now at work?
Actually, Femi, we need all technology as possible. We need technology in the seed, because the seed is the beginning. We need technology in the phytosanitary question, and of course, we need technology in our machinery. For example, the harvest, the combine machine. We need this technology because we know every meter what is the yield, the potential in every meter, and then we take this data to the next year for the sowing. So all the technology is necessary. And for example, the new breeding technology, the new genetic technology is a solution for the part of the problem. We said that, for example, in Spain, Spain is like a laboratory. What is happening about the pests and diseases, because we have the consequences of the climate change first than any other people in Europe. And we need the tool to protect the crops, of course, because we need to supply crops, food at the end for the population in the world, not only in Europe. And we farmers can adapt our farms to every system, but we need to have in the center of the debate. Farming is not a factory of bricks. We need we depend of the climate change, of the climate, of course, and at the end we can do everything. as Matt Damon made in the film The Martian, we can produce potato in Mars, but we need technology and time.
Wow, you exploded my head right there. Potatoes in March. Pedro, thank you. Stand by. I'm just going to bring in Anna. Hello, Anna. It's so lovely to have you here in this session. Anna, will you introduce yourself to our delegates, our attendees?
Thank you, Femi, and hello, everybody. I'm the coordinator of the conservation department in BirdLife Spain. I've been dealing with conservation of biodiversity for many years and mainly related with agriculture and how to make the link to reconnect the agriculture with the nature and the biodiversity.
Anna, this is a very special year for BirdLife. It is the centenary year. So much like Pedro, so much knowledge to draw on. But also this year, there's a 10-year plan, a 10-year strategy for tackling the climate crisis and the nature crisis. Can you share with us what is in that plan and where innovation fits into it?
Well, yes. During this century, we have been working a lot in defending nature and putting the biodiversity in the debate, not only as something that we need to do, but it's something that is important for human being as society, because we need nature. And we are very proud that we have maybe achieved to have the nature and biodiversity concept in many debates, not only in our own world, but in sectoral debates, in agriculture, in policy, in energy, and in other sectors. In this new strategy for the next 10 years, we again have the agriculture sector as one of the main ones, but not only because it could be behind the crisis in terms of negative impact, but also because we need to ensure that agriculture can deal with these challenges. And in that sense, maybe the innovation makes a very important role. But it's true that for us, innovation is not only about technology, it's not only about how to use the machinery or new chemicals, but also how to reconnect with nature, how to use the nature as an ally, because biodiversity, water, soil, all of them are factors that are fundamental for agriculture. Pedro has already said that they depend on climate change, they depend on natural resources. So we need to ensure that we protect these resources for the future, for the long term of the food security, that is not only to produce food, and that's all, but we need to also talk about the consumption patterns, the consumption levels, because maybe we can make a lot of on the sense of efficiency in terms of how much we use for one unit of food, but we need to put them in a broader scale for in terms of level of consumption and how we consume the resources in the world.
And what I hear here is either a reminder or a very thoughtful warning that we can't be all in with tech and all in with innovation. We have to be very mindful about what we're doing with that tech and that innovation. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yes, we need to think about other ways of innovation, not only technology, but also innovation in marketing, in policy, and how we relate each other, how to use all the knowledge that we have, the farmers, the policymakers, the researchers, and the societal researchers also. So we need to use all of that together and looking for synergies. So we need to think about technology, but not only on that. When we talk about innovation,
I'm going to bring back Robert. I'm going to bring back Pedro here because we're part of Solutions Week this week. This session is part of Solutions as well. Pedro is multitasking. I see that. Pedro, thank you for multitasking. I appreciate it. A farmer's work is never done. All right. So when we're talking about solutions in the context of innovation and sustainability, what are you looking out for, Robert and Pedro and Anna? Robert, you start. What is a solid, sustainable solution from your perspective when we're looking at innovation from the work that you do?
Well, I think let's take a step back, and I want to pick up the point that both Anna and Pedro made. We're going to look at the end-to-end of of all of this from the start to finish, because it's not. If you look at the problems that exist and the solutions which may be available, it's no one bit of the chain. There are many pieces of the chain which need to be addressed, and I would say that our role in there is actually quite holistic, but also, we manage what we manage in terms of what can go on the farm. And if you look at the way of farming, it's just I think what Anna is really going at, is we need to look at how we do that. And there are many things we can do on the farm which can actually support, bring back and encourage biodiversity. If we have what's called regenerative agriculture, we can actually have something called cover crops, which are crops or plants which are planted in between tree crops, such as fruit trees or vines, which really encourage biodiversity, actually create habitats for a lot of small animals and birds and insects and pollinators. But we also plant crops between harvests in arable fields where the soil is left bare. And in Spain, it's left bare for 6 months under the hot sun, where it is eroded by the wind, it's eroded by the sun, it's eroded by there may be some rain. But this is a crop you put on. It actually helps the soil become more sort of nutritious and a better host for all the things that live in soil normally, as well as creating a habitat for what lives above it. And the other element is if you combine that with what's called no-till farming, which is you don't disturb the soil when you plant the crops the next time. You actually store carbon. You can store carbon in the soil, so it's not emitted into the atmosphere. And don't forget that agriculture is quite an important part of greenhouse gas emission globally. So anything that agriculture can do to control that or even reverse that is a very good sort of contributor to helping with climate change, but also supporting health of soil and health of the natural environment generally.
Let me just check in with Anna. Anna, this is something that BirdLife has been thinking about, biodiversity and how do you preserve nature. That is what they do. Are you seeing that you're getting more buy-in now from the populations around the world, from farmers, from agriculture, from big ag, from small ag? Is everybody on board here?
Well, we think, or we are seeing that the messages and the topic is really achieving people, because we are trying also to work in presenting examples, real examples, where we show that the biodiversity and nature can help farming. So, for example, we have a new project. Well, it's not really new already. It's for 5 years that we are working on this now. For example, as Robert has said, we are working in olive groves, taking back the plants on the soil, taking back the biodiversity around. So we are now having a higher harvest of olives in these olive groves with less chemicals, because we are not promoting just organic farming completely free of chemicals. It's just reducing the use if you don't need it. So we are using biodiversity and plants to avoid the need of new chemicals, new fertilizers, new pesticides, and we have now a higher harvest and a higher quality on the final product. So it's also the innovation in the market side. So we are promoting this, and we need consumers that really support also this, are aware and support this kind of product.
Anna, you have just preempted and you've just sort of seen ahead to what we're going to be talking about in the rest of this event. So thank you for that, doing a little promo, a little teaser for us. The last word in this conversation has to go to the farmer. Pedro, what do you want to leave us with? Innovation for supporting food systems. What is your farmer's perspective before I thank you and move on?
Well, my farmer's perspective is for me that we need sustainable solution. we want sustainable solution because we want the sustainability. We need a wide toolbox as big as possible, as digital as possible, and precision tools. We need to have precision tools. Precision farming is very important. New genetic editing is also very important for the future and also for the present right now. We need a biopesticide, and we need conventional pesticide, of course. It's chemical. We humans use chemical for our, when we are ill, when we need medicine, we need chemical, and this in the same way the plant needs the chemical too. In a way, I used to say that we should call us like a medicine of the plant, not like a phytosanitary. And the medicine is expensive for humans, and also the crop protection and the medicine of the plants are expensive. So we want to use just the right, no more doses, just the right doses. But we need protection for the plants to grow healthy, because we want to produce healthy crops, sustainable crops, and crops for not only Europe, the rest of the world. So we have a lot of challenge nowadays, limitation, and we have to continue with the sustainability production.
Pedro and Anna and Robert, thank you so much. You helped us understand this big picture of how innovation can help deliver sustainable food systems. We're going to dig a little bit deeper now, but thank you for starting us off really, really well. I am going to move on. Let's look at some examples, okay, of innovation which may well help sustainable food systems. And I'm going to stop in biopesticides. That's something that I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into. Not by myself, though. I'm going to be joined by Camilla Corsi and Giuseppe Natali. Camilla, hello, welcome. Good to have you. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
My name is Camilla Corsi, and I'm leading the crop protection research in Syngenta. So what does it mean? I'm responsible for providing the innovation of the future for both chemicals and biological technology, especially biocontrol.
Well, it's always good just to have a refresher for what biopesticides are. How would you describe them?
Well, I think Robin already mentioned before, but if we can just maybe just spend a bit of time. So biopesticides are biological or biological derived agents that can be applied in a manner that is very similar to the one of chemical pesticide. They are very different type. So there is a microbial, there is natural product, there is a peptide of or RNAi. So all of this is very different, a new terminology as well for the market. But we believe this could provide a huge opportunity to really broaden our toolbox, as Pedro has mentioned.
Mm-hmm. And so if you're looking at biopesticides, and we are very focused on unleashing innovation, where do biopesticides fit into innovation?
Well, biopesticide, so they're using natural process, and they have specific characteristic. So they tend to be very selective. So they impact or they affect only specific target pests and all the closely related organisms. And this is in contrast to a broader chemical solution that tend to have a much broader chemical spectrum. Due to their nature, they really offer us the possibility to have solutions that are fitting very well in the integrated pest management program that we continue to bring to the market. They have a very low or lower exposure and residue comparing to chemicals, and they tend to have a very low impact in the environment. And just maybe to give you one example that we are very proud of, at this moment in time, we are working on a new microbial fungicide for disease control in cereals. And what we are very proud of, that we have now observed a biological efficacy that is very comparable to the one of the chemicals. So this is a natural occurring solution that I truly believe will provide an exceptional tool to the growers in the future.
Growers of the future, actually growers of the present, if you have questions for our experts, please use the Q&A box I can see the questions will come back to me, even comments as well. Really help to have you be part of this discussion as well. Camilla, I'm just thinking about rolling out something as new and different as biopesticides. How do you do that? Do you have to change people's minds when you roll it out? How are you working?
Well, I think as I tried to mention before, you really need to understand what are the specificity of this biopesticide solution, what are the strengths that they will bring to your offer, but as well what are some of the weakness, or what are the way that you really be able to have a perfect integrated protocol that will provide the growers with the right solution for the pest, disease, or weed that they need to control into the field.
What about challenges, Camilla?
Well, I think there is a lot of different challenge, and I think the challenge starts as well from from our industry. So we have invested a lot in the last few years, and I think our industry, and my team as well, we were trying to find solutions that were better than chemicals. Okay. With a lot of experience, expertise, new capability, we now understand that the solutions are different. And as I mentioned before, the strength of the biopesticide are strength that need to be nurtured and need to be protected, versus as well the strength of a chemical technology. So both technology can coexist and go in hand in hand. Now, if we just think where we are today with the biopesticide, the biopesticide of today are more expensive and less effective than synthetic solution. And some individuals, some farmers as well, refer to them as snake oil, because sometimes you cannot observe in the field the expected biological efficacy. Now, I truly believe that we have done a major advantage in science in the last few years, and we are now on the second wave of new generation that could really provide the differentiation that we are looking for. However, we need to think about to develop a specific framework, a specific regulatory framework to really bring such solution into the market. And that's why it's important. We need to guarantee a robust business case to really incentivize industry, small industry or biggest industry, to continue to invest in for this new solution. And for this, an enabling legislative framework is important. Today, it still takes a long time to bring such new solution to market. And we would like to bring the solution to market in much shorter time, and as well to have a framework that will enable us as industry, as with the university and all other partners, to really understand or to better predict what will be the regulatory outcome. These solutions are game changer, but they really need to nurture and protect it while we bring them to market.
Camilla, thank you. I'm going to ask you to stand by as I bring in Giuseppe Natali. Giuseppe, it's nice to see you. Giuseppe, will you remind our audience who you are and what you do?
I'm very happy to be here and see the progress that biological are getting in the space of tools for an holistic management of the crop. Since we joined last year, 2021 has been a great year for us under many perspectives. The synergy between Valagro and Syngenta has brought much success and satisfaction, and very, very happy to see the matching between the needs of the market and what biological can offer to the farmer and the grower across the world.
Giuseppe, I remember last year we had a lot of questions. I've got a lot of questions now, so I'm going to bring Camilla back and you, and then we're going to actually just dig into some of these questions, because some of them will be myth busting and some will just be really helpful for our audience to understand. So this is from Christine. I believe there is some semantic confusion in the general public if it comes to the use of biologicals versus biopesticides. Could you elaborate or clarify? Biologicals,
Sorry, can you repeat again, Femi?
Yeah, the confusion, there's some confusion in the general public about the difference between biologicals and biopesticides. Giuseppe, do you want to start, and then Camilla, you can finish up?
Well, biologicals, it's a larger product category that include plant biostimulant, biofertilizer, and also biocontrol product. So this is, I would like to say, the main difference. And when we talk about the subcategory of product, for example, on plant biostimulant, we mainly address the management of the abiotic stress or nutrient use efficiency, while for biocontrol, it's of course very specific, and maybe Camilla can
so
add.
Camilla, I'm going to get you to...
Please.
Mm-hmm. Camilla, go ahead.
So yes, I think as Giuseppe just mentioned, so these are the two major categories. So biocontrol, biopesticide is all about control of pests, so being disease, insect control, or weeds. And I think some of the confusion is deriving from the nature of this technology and how such technology may regulate it as well in very different countries. But I think for Europe, and that's today is the focus of Europe, and they are regulated under the same framework for biopesticide.
Camilla, Elvira, who is watching right now, thank you, Elvira, has a question about microbial fungicides for disease control that you mentioned, targeting, but which pest?
So I didn't mention the pest in purpose. So I think we will need to wait for a few months. Okay, Elvira, and then you will learn more about this. Maybe next year when we are here, I think I will disclose more information about this. But I can say that these are very important disease for wheat in Europe.
Okay, Elvira, well spotted. Camilla, not so well hidden. Is there a reason why? Is it because it's a patent right now that you don't want anyone else to know what you're onto? Just give us some general ideas, because that helps us. Because when we talk about innovations, we also understand that there's an R&D process, there's a development process. So it's really interesting to know where you are along that process too.
I think it's indeed, due to the IP that I think, we are filing is part of our R&D process. But in discussing today with my colleague what to share here, I think it was important as well in this innovation framework to highlight that it's possible to find, biopesticide solution that are potentially as effective as well as chemicals, because that's, I think, is what is a breakthrough and a game changer technology is. And that's why we want to share for the first time with this audience that we have now something in hands and that we are progressing in our pipeline. And this came after many years of research and a huge investment, not just from Syngenta, but as well in general in the whole space. But now technology has advanced, science has advanced, and that's where we are with the second generation of technology.
You look very calm, Camilla, but this sounds really exciting. But I will wait for another year to see what you reveal. Giuseppe, I have a great question. Francisco, I love this question so much. Francisco says, all crop defense solutions need to be tested and registered. Do you think it is necessary that the legislation for their registration be the same for chemicals as for biologicals?
Well, this is, I think, one of the problems that we have here in Europe, because there is a big mismatch between the market requirement that needs more biological or more holistic approach, while the regulation is not fit for purpose. So I think that is extremely important that we work for a new regulation that cover more specifically what are the requirements for biologicals. At the same time, I think that it's extremely important that we keep high standard on safety, on toxic, because I would like to be also very clear that the fact that the products are natural doesn't mean that are safe. You know, there is a lot of poison in nature. So we don't want to simply, I can say, decrease the level of security or safety of the product, but we need to be very much more specific on the characterization of the product, because again, the chemical are very different nature from what could be the naturally occurring product.
Giuseppe, that's such a good point, because I'm thinking natural products, what could possibly go wrong? Why would it need to be tested? But you're right, where did we get our poisons from in the first place? We got them from nature. Where did our chemicals come from in the first place? From nature. That makes a lot of sense. I love the questions. Keep them coming. We have a little bit more time with Camilla and Giuseppe, but not much time. Leah asked this, Camilla. If I'm not mistaken, you mentioned RNAi as biopesticides. Can you tell us more about that? What is the status of this kind or these kind of products in Europe? Forgive me if you're repeating yourself, but this one is for Leah.
So thanks for the question. So the RNAi is again a natural process. So it's the same process that most of us has experienced when we have done the COVID vaccination, and there is a series of technologies that are very advanced for insect control. And I think Syngenta is one of the companies that is playing in this space. And there is a US-based company as well that is called Greenlight that is providing solution, quite advanced solution as well for insect control and disease control. So we believe that this is technology that Europe should definitely have. Will be the first time that will be regulated in Europe, and we are aware that soon we should receive, not we Syngenta, but this US-based company should receive a registration for the first product for insect control use.
Camilla, Stefano wants to know, and Giuseppe, if you know this, please jump in as well. Stefano says, so you are saying that biopesticides we are talking about are also authorized in organic farming in the European Union. Which countries do you know? Could you give us an example? Is that possible? Or will Stefano have to go off and do some more research?
I think, Stefano, I'm not the best to answer this question. And I think we will need to ask to some of my colleagues. But I think the intent, at least I can tell you, the Syngenta ambition will be, of course, to register biopesticide that have a broader label for organic farming and as well conventional farming. That's what is our ambition, and that's what we are looking as well for some of this new technology.
I'm just thinking, Giuseppe, just to help us just end this part of our conversation. There's a journey with biopesticides where people are still maybe thinking they're snake oil, but you're making so much progress. What is that timeline, do you think, when they will just become part of everyday farming and agriculture? How far are we away from that time?
I think that we need to live with a concept that, of course, I'm very pleased that the team of Camilla and a lot of scientists are working to improve the efficacy of the biologicals. But I think that by nature, we need to accept that the nuance of the efficacy of biological normally are less effective than the conventional chemicals. But what I think that it's really important is the experience that on the positioning the product across the cycle of the crop. In this, there is a lot of activity to be done with the technician when these products are recommended on working. So I think that it's important experience on the application of the product, the right positioning of the products, and for sure better regulation together. So I think that with this all together, for sure biologicals will become an important tools complement for managing the crop and achieve the big goal that we have to produce more with less. So more better food in a more sustainable agriculture.
Oh my goodness me. Giuseppe, Camilla,
And-
we have so many questions for you. People are very, very, very excited to talk to you and they have lots of questions. I'm going to move our conversation on. Camilla, sorry, you can have the last word. Go ahead.
No,
You're gonna
I
say
think
something.
I would just to say, just building on Giuseppe, so probably we still need to wait at least another decade to start to see this continuum of technology coming into market, as I think as Giuseppe has mentioned, and this need to be enabled from investment. That's first, and I think there is a lot of investment in Europe and outside Europe. Regulation and knowledge, and that's why I think what Giuseppe mentioned, to have knowledge of all the different components is very important if we want really to deliver a sustainable solution.
That is a really good reality check for us to move on from here. So we've got a decade. We're looking at a decade, really. Camilla, Giuseppe, attendees, thank you for your questions. Excellent questions. Do keep them coming. We are moving on now to biodiversity, encouraging biodiversity. Where is the innovation in encouraging biodiversity, and how is that helping sustainable food systems? Or hopefully we can join up all the dots. Let me introduce you to who's going to be in this session. We're going to have Eva Hansel, Vasilis Vasiliadis, and Kieran Joseph. And they're not only coming with ideas, there's going to be some show and tell as well. But let's start with Eva first of all. Syngenta's role, Eva, when it comes to biodiversity, put those two together. What do we need to know?
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, the decline of biodiversity has serious consequences for agriculture and thus for food security. The loss of biodiversity is threatening our customers, the farmers, and our economies and societies. So Syngenta Group works for the food security of today, tomorrow, 2050 and beyond. And what is very important is that the productivity of existing farmland increases over time. It has to increase over time. This is the only way to avoid converting more land or even natural habitat into agricultural production. Agriculture is and always has been an intervention in nature that influences biodiversity. So our aim has to be that we better reconcile modern agronomic practices with biodiversity to halt or even reverse its loss. And what is also very important is, sorry.
Sure. No, tell me
is
what's
very
important, and then I'll come after what's important. Go ahead.
What is very important that we always keep in mind that biodiversity-friendly farming needs to be economically and socially viable for the farmer in the end.
I know what's coming up, so I love that there are going to be so many great ideas. We've got tools, we've got apps, we've got digital ways of enhancing biodiversity. So innovation and biodiversity, that connection there, tell us more about that. And then we're going to hear more about that too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, maybe first to say that this is not completely new. With our Good Growth Plan and tools such as Operation Pollinator, we have the longest standing industry track record of promoting biodiversity in agriculture. And we remain very committed to this. So we will continue enhancing biodiversity and soil health on 3 million hectares farmland every year. However, there is no room for complacency. We are accelerating our innovation to promote biodiversity in agriculture, because our goal is to make biodiversity flourish on every farm. And we are really excited to see that biodiversity is gaining more and more attention, which we really highly appreciate. Still, the level of data and information we have on biodiversity in agriculture is insufficient. And comparing biodiversity to other fields, for example, climate change, climate change is much more advanced. And this is the field, this is the gap we need to fill. And this is where we are focusing our innovative power on.
Mm-hmm. Eva, I want to bring in Vasilis. Vasilis, hi, nice to have you.
Hello.
Hi, fantastic. Hi. Hi there. Introduce yourself to our audience. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Vasilios Vasiliadis, and I'm a sustainable and responsible business manager, working on leading basically the biodiversity initiatives in the Europe, Africa, and Middle East region. And we are going to discuss about them during this session.
So many initiatives. You see how widely I'm smiling because you have so many. Where should we start?
Yeah, thank you. Basically, I would like to start that most of us are aware that there are global studies and policies that highlight the need to restore biodiversity in agricultural landscapes. In the EU, we see policies that set up eco schemes to reward farmers that choose to implement practices for environmental care and climate action. And Syngenta, for over 15 years, is promoting and implementing such practices globally through our Operation Pollinator flower seed mixes. Operation Pollinator creates essential habitats in the field margins, on headlands, or on fallow land, and provides nesting and food resources for pollinators, beneficial insects, and farmland birds. At the same time, though, it provides the farmers with ecosystem services like pollination and pest control by natural enemies for a sustainable food production. However, Femi, Syngenta is aware that to understand biodiversity and how best to protect it, the global agricultural community, from policymakers to food chain to the farmers, needs more on the ground in the field data than is currently being captured to report back the impact of their biodiversity-friendly activities. Yeah?
Vasilis, can I ask you why there isn't more data? It's obvious that you need to get that. Where is the attention? Why is it not on collecting that data?
Yeah, so basically, Femi, globally such time series data on farmland is missing. Yeah, we don't know at scale what insects occur, where and when, how active they are throughout the day, and what is the influence of farming practices on these variables and the ecosystem. Yeah, there is fragmented biodiversity monitoring. Yes. And there are like resource. It's not easy. It's difficult to practice monitoring, let's say, on the field. So you cannot have a continuous time series data coming up. So there is a gap here, Femi. There is a gap that digital technologies can address. Yeah, and this is why Syngenta, as an innovative industry leader, is focusing on developing such solutions that can accelerate biodiversity restoration through better knowledge and advice. Would you like some examples?
I'd love some examples. Go ahead. I know you have them ready. Go ahead.
I have them. So we recently launched the CropWise Sustainability App, a digital tool which will allow farmers to assess the sustainability of the farm and get recommendations for improvement in areas such as crop production, water impact, soil health, and biodiversity. And I have also another one for you. Another great initiative. Yeah, another great initiative is the Farmland. Yeah, it's coming. So another great initiative is the Farmland Biodiversity Challenge that we recently launched in France, and soon we are going to launch it in other European countries. With this challenge, we invite farmers to take photos of their farmland biodiversity and use the iNaturalist app to identify automatically any insects, plant, birds, or mammal species, and share these biodiversity observations with the public. In this way, farmers will understand better their biodiversity and feel proud of their impact. And
I
finally,
like that. Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
I know, and now
This
it's
is a whole, Vasilis, this is a whole show.
oh yes. Now we have something very exciting. So we're also developing an exciting state-of-the-art biodiversity sensor project, which my colleague Kieran now can tell us more about it. Thank you.
Very good. Hello, Kieran. Thank you for helping me co-moderate. I appreciate you. Kieran, hello.
Hello, Femi.
Kieran,
Good afternoon.
hi there. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're watching. Thank you. Introduce yourself, Kieran, before you do this build-up, because I know something special is about to happen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Femi. I'm Kiran Joseph. I'm a digital product manager here in Syngenta Group, and I've been leading technology research and development that are about to change the trajectory of agriculture, especially in the sustainability area. All right.
Something a little bit before we go to the video. Does it need any setup before we do it, or shall I just say, let's take a look at the video?
Well, I wanted to start with saying that over the last 2 years, the entire humanity witnessed accelerated innovations in science and technology. All right. And at Syngenta Group, we've been also working hard to find better and safer solutions to address the shared challenge that we have, which is climate change and biodiversity loss. So today, we are very excited to share with you that we have a technological breakthrough.
So that is a little glimpse at the Biodiversity Sensor project. Kieran, is it ready? Is it out there yet? Tell us more.
First of all, this is a technological breakthrough. And this breakthrough is enabling automatic, reliable, autonomous, and at scale measurement of biodiversity, and essentially all species in motion. And we believe that this biodiversity sensor can positively influence measurement of all species across farmlands and also solve the data gap, as Vasilis and Eva mentioned earlier today. And I want to highlight this particular breakthrough. It was made possible through the research and development with our strong partners, Tumbling Dice, Indian Institute of Technology, Fraunhofer Institute, and TDWG. What you saw right now is a prototype of the first version of the sensor. And later this year, we are intending to roll it out in multiple farmlands to test the technology, validate the science, and enable data stream, which will help in better decision making. This human-led, earth-centered solution, first of all, it required complex thinking. And I'm humbled and proud to share this research outcome. Do you want to know more about how it works and what it does?
That's a really good question to ask our attendees. We have a Q&A here. So you have just seen the Biodiversity Sensor project. Okay, you've seen it. What do you want to know? I have so many questions. I'm sure you do as well. Kieran is here, and he's here for the next few minutes. So if you have any questions, type them really quickly into the Q&A box, and then we can do Q&A with Kieran about this particular project. For instance, how long How long have you been working on it?
We've been working on this since end of 2020, and 2021 was the year that we tested on farmlands with the first initial prototype, where we used this artificial intelligence, and it earned more than 95% confidence in detecting between the insect species we trained. So it's the software essentially has three elements. The first is pure active vision to detect motion and track individual objects. And once it is recorded, it goes to the intelligent artificial intelligence, where it will classify any moving species to a genus level when trained. And once we tested it out in the farmlands, we also saw that this software can be scaled from insects to birds
So
to
Kieran,
mammals.
can I ask you how did you test this out? So take me into the field. How did you test it out?
So essentially, the hardware that we initially used was a Raspberry Pi based system. We had it in a kind of a tiffin box, but then the artificial intelligence that we had was hosted in the cloud. It was kept on farmlands above the canopy, phasing it out, and we were tracking all the insects that were passing in front of the canopy. And also we
All right,
tested
so
it out in
Kieran,
the lab.
hold tight. Wonderful. I have got so many questions for you. So can I just share them with you right now from the audience right now? So let me just do it, because we don't have Kieran every day. So this is really helpful. Philip wants to know, please can you tell us more about how the sensor works and how can we help to trial it? Good question, Philip. I love that question. Kieran, go ahead.
I didn't get the second part. How can we help to
Trial it. Can people try it out? Yeah, is
All
it
right.
available yet?
So we are testing it out in the fields this year, and you're more than welcome to visit us in the trial fields and see these sensors in action, right? So
What
2022
fields?
is
Where
all about.
are they?
So it would be
Kieran,
in
where are you?
Germany, in Gießen,
Yes.
in the Fraunhofer Institute facilities. So there are farmlands that we identified, and that's where you can see the sensors live in action. So I
All right, Philip.
would say 2022 is all about testing. Now,
All right,
the
and now
software.
is that information? Oh, I'm sorry. Is that information available online so Philip can actually go to Germany if he wanted to check it out? Like, I just want to make sure that he's connected with you if that's possible.
All right. So we are in the early stages of this development, right? So there's no online presence yet. And this is the first event that we are sharing out to the public that we've been researching in the field of biodiversity. And we are bringing in new technologies that can help in measuring biodiversity at scale. We should be able to host more events, public events, starting in June. So once the events are publicized, you're more than welcome to join us in these events. There'll be also sessions coming up later this year in June in the World Biodiversity Forum, where my colleague Vasilis would be also sharing further information about the sensor.
Okay. All right, let's get Vasilis and let's get Eva back, because I've got so many questions. I'm not sure that you could do all of them, Kieran, so let's share them around. Very quickly on the sensor, how does the sensor work? Philip wanted to know that, please.
So the sensor first captures any motion of insects or any species that is moving in front of it, and it captures an event. And this event is handed over to the artificial intelligence, where it's trained to detect between species on a genus level. It classifies it, indexes it, and says, hey, today I saw a bumblebee at this time. And tomorrow at this time, I saw another species. So it is intelligent enough to distinguish between the species at a genus level.
Amazing. So you may well have answered this question. I'm just checking. Any other countries other than Germany taking part in trials? That was another question from our audience. Thank you. Good question.
At this point, it's based in Germany for the sheer reason that this is a complex project that requires thorough thinking and also consider all the ecological parameters that exist out there in farmlands. As it's closer to our research and development centers also, we thought it's better that we do in Germany in 2022. However, from 2023, we are looking at other locations and other countries where we can scale it, depending on the kind of, let's say, interests that are coming in from policymakers, growers, researchers, and nature enthusiasts.
Okay. Another question. This is very popular. I love that you've instantly available. Thank you. Good questions as well. Eric wants to know, Do you see this biodiversity sensor project as a monitoring tool for a farm, for a region, for a crop system?
All of this, probably. That's exactly what it's
That's
for.
what I was thinking. Tick, 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 check, check, check.
Yeah. So the biodiversity sensor project will provide an unprecedented wealth of comparable biodiversity data. And being able to measure biodiversity will enable the agronomic community to manage it much better than ever before. And there is many purposes for that.
And we are living in a world with climate change, right? So having sensors out there and getting hyperlocal data, it will give a holistic picture of nature, its pressures, and also trends, that happens with the climate change context. Are there new species moving in? Are there new pests observed? And are there species declining at a faster rate than we thought about? It is going to give us more questions once we have more data, and more problems to solve, which excites Vasilis, Eva, and the whole community that we've been talking with.
So this is Gus, who is watching right now. Gus wants to know the name of the app farmers can use to identify biodiversity species.
Yeah, this is called the iNaturalist app. iNaturalist app. It's a platform that exists already. It's developed by the California Academy of Sciences and the National Geographic Society. Yeah, and it's out there.
Is it I? Vasilis, is it I like the letter I?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. I'm going to just ask for Eva to help us just wrap up here, because we need to move on to our very last segment. And that is just, what's the final message you want to leave us with, Eva? Thank you, Vasilis and for Kieran and Eva for helping us just get through this biodiversity section, and also generate some buzz as well with the biodiversity sensor, not available yet, but currently in testing mode. Eva, how do we want to end this? Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Femi. And thank you, Vasilis and Kieran. Let me wrap that up by saying that we really strongly believe in data and scientific evidence. And with that sensor here, we bring a tool where we can really generate value for all of us from data and information. Nevertheless, we will continue intensifying our efforts to promote biodiversity in agriculture. So there is more to come along the biodiversity sensor. And similar to other global challenges, we need to do this together. We need to tackle this challenge together within and beyond our industry.
Thank you so much, Eva. Thank you, Kieran, and thank you, Vasilis, and thank you for all your questions. Lots more to come, I know, from that project. We appreciate you showing us today. All right, one more place to go on our journey through innovation, the Unleashing the Potential of Innovation, brought to you by Syngenta. And I'm going to go into an area that really is a hot topic when we talk about sustainability and innovation and agriculture, and that is new genomic techniques. I would love you to take a look at this video, and then we will talk more.
Some of today's most significant scientific innovations happen in agriculture. A good example is when the Nobel Prize-winning CRISPR genome editing system, also known as genetic scissors, is reapplied in plant breeding. Genome editing is a new genomic technique, and when used in plants, it can help farmers address some of the most pressing challenges of our times, such as climate change. This innovative technology allows plant scientists to directly delete, replace, or add specific genetic information using the plant's own biological processes and DNA. Just like conventional plant breeding, but with greater precision and efficiency, reducing the time to get to a healthier, more resilient, and sustainable crop, from more than 10 years to just a few. How? A crop's genetic code contains information that defines its properties. Those which are an advantage in farming, like drought tolerance, and also those that are a clear disadvantage, like being susceptible to a disease. Let's say plant breeders would like to develop a crop that is resistant to a specific disease. To do this, they identify the sequence in the crop's DNA that makes it sensitive to the disease and create a guide molecule, a special RNA, which can precisely locate this code. Next, an enzyme that can cut DNA is combined with the guide RNA, which leads it to the precise location where the genetic scissors cut the DNA, inactivating the gene that causes the crop's sensitivity to the disease. Using cutting-edge NGTs, a more resilient plant is created, one that is identical to what would have been the result of conventional breeding, done more precisely, more efficiently, and much faster. This is just one example of how new genomic techniques can help meet farmers' and consumers' needs. More sustainable food production, increased protection of plants and the environment, and more resilient, more nutritious, better tasting produce.
Sarah Iveson and Charlie Baxter will be joining us for this final section. If you've been sitting on a question, now is a good time to put it in the Q&A box so that we can get to as many as possible, talking about new genomic techniques. Sarah, hello. Please introduce yourself to our attendees. Go ahead. Lovely to see you.
Good afternoon, Femi. Thank you very much. My name is Sarah Iveson. I'm the head of seeds development for IAMI. So I lead the team of scientists that are essentially searching and developing new genetic solutions for our farmers across all of the field crops in Europe, Africa, and Middle East.
Mm-hmm. So that video is really nice as a sort of like on-ramp for what we're talking about. But how is gene editing different from GMOs?
Femi, I think you probably hit the question that is on many people's lips and in many people's minds with that. So it's a great place. It's a great place to start. And let me start by saying genomes are not fixed entities. They are living, and they live in all living organisms, and they mutate, and they're dynamic, and they evolve over time. And that is the basis of evolution in plants, in people, in animals. And the key difference between GMOs, genetically modified organisms, and NGTs, which we're talking about today, is that NGTs use the plant's own DNA and biological processes without introducing any other genetic material from the outside. And that means that we then create a plant, or that it creates an end result that is identical to what you would see in nature, to what you'd see through conventional plant breeding, and what you can see naturally occurring throughout the whole entire globe. But I think the piece that is very helpful with NGTs is it allows us to do it much quicker, and we'll go into that a little bit later, I'm sure, and maybe there'll be some questions on that, but it allows us to do it much quicker, sure, much more efficient, and much more precise.
How old is this process? When did it start?
It's actually quite a new process. It's been developed within the last 10 years. I think the first patents and Nobel Prizes came out within around 2014. So it's one of the innovations that's really coming through in agriculture, in science, in the last decade, which is super exciting to see it ramp up so quickly, and us being able to be able to use it in certain parts in the world, and hopefully in the future within Europe, Africa, Middle East as well.
I want you to help us understand a little bit of the technology, and then I'm going to bring in Charlie to ask him about how Syngenta is maybe using this tech. So, Sarah, you can go as deep or as light as you want to. Take us into the tech.
Sure, no, absolutely. And I think where I want to start is actually with this technology has been driving agriculture for the last 100 years. Throughout the 20th century, we've seen leaps and bounds forward in terms of how we drive forward plant breeding and how we bring sustainable agriculture to growers. If you look at just over the last 60 years through plant breeding techniques, a recent OECD reference showed that plant productivity and food production has increased by 390%. while the amount of land used to produce food has only increased by 10%. That shows what science is doing. That shows what some of the scientific approaches of where we've been able to discover and work on a much more molecular scale with plant breeding has really helped drive these forward. And where we see NGTs making a huge difference is continuing in some of that sustainability field in the future. You heard a little bit from the video in terms of how gene editing works. Where I wanted to also tell you a little bit today is how I would love to use it within Europe, within my team, within our crops, and I think this is an area where we see unprecedented. I think that's a common word for today, but unprecedented opportunities that allow us to bring new opportunities. We see a huge spread of plant diseases, which in some cases we can't breed fast enough for how quickly races change. We see dwindling resources in soil and water. We see climate change, and climate change is happening now. We see food security concerns. I think that's very present right now with some of the economical situation and the war that's occurring in the Ukraine. Our goal in plant breeding, our goal by being able to use NGTs is to be able to keep farmers at pace with the way the macro environment is moving along, and be able to provide solutions that really suit her needs. Couple of examples that I wanted to give, if that works.
Of course, go
Just
ahead. Yeah, it does.
We talk about diseases and we talk about plant diseases, and plant diseases can wipe out 40% of a crop potential yield. So controlling these, and our farmers controlling these, are significantly important. Us being able to provide a faster response to pest pressures, gene editing or NGTs would allow us to bring a step change in a sustainable solution, ensuring durable disease resistance, which could allow us to reduce the number of fungicide applications, or allow farmers to reduce the number of fungicide applications that would need to be applied whilst maintaining the yield. And that's quite a step forward from where we are today. Another, when we think about climate change and we think about how the crops are evolving in Europe, I speak to my team around where sunflowers is evolving, and it's getting further and further north. Mm-hmm. Soon you'll get the UK team starting to sell sunflowers, and we could enhance the plant's kind of natural defenses against climate change, against stresses that are out there. We can do that in multiple ways.
I've got a ton of questions. I have questions for you, Sarah. So do you mind if I bring, because then you know you're specifically speaking to what our audience is thinking about right now. And let me give you one question. I'm going to bring in Charlie so he doesn't get lonely. All right. So what are the sustainability benefits of NGTs for farmers?
Big sustainability benefits would be having more durable disease resistance, more stronger, more resilient crops, whether that's looking at, as I said, kind of their natural defenses against climate change. We could also look at that there's benefits around food waste and being able to maintain product kind of shelf life of fresh produce or post-harvest quality. We could also look at how the nutritional benefits of many crops that we use today, which are food crops, about how we can enhance those, removing allergens, looking at oils. I mean, I think the benefits are no end in terms of bringing these forward. And what it allows us to do is the development life cycle, in order to kind of selectively breed year after year, is around 12 to 15 years. If you use NGTs, you could get this down to 2 to 3.
All right. Hello, Charlie back. So that is a really good time to bring you in. Charlie, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, Femi.
Hey, Charlie.
So my name is Charlie Baxter, and I head up our traits, regulatory and product safety team. So I'm responsible for bringing the new characteristics into our crop varieties, and also providing the regulatory approvals that we need for those, and some of the science that supports that characterization.
Charlie, so I was just thinking, Sarah there was just talking about the benefits of NGTs and shrinking tie limes, etc. Is Syngenta using NGTs yet?
So we do use NGTs in our research pipeline. We don't have any commercial products yet, and that's partly because of where the technology is in terms of the development cycle, but it's also partly because of the fragmented regulatory system that exists globally. A company like Syngenta has to consider how global commodities are traded, and whilst corn or soybean, wheat may be cultivated in one country, it might be consumed in another, and we need to get the relevant registrations and approvals that support that technology in those different geographies. And so that's one of the things that's actually holding us back from commercializing NGTs at the moment.
Oh, it's almost as if Francoise Stettman could read your mind. Francoise asked just a moment ago, how are European safety regulations on NGTs hampering research?
Well, I mean, we've seen, as Sarah said, this technology is really developed from 2014 onwards. And so it's a very short time, and different countries have had to adapt their regulatory systems to accommodate something that is different from the GMOs that they've been used to regulating. And I would say that the European Commission has done a great job in actually getting to grips with this. This kind of technology in a 2018 ruling falls under the 2001 European directive, which regulates GMOs. And that directive is over 20 years old, and that's almost a third of the life cycle of DNA as a discovery itself. So I think everyone in the industry, industry associations, academics, regulators recognize that there needs to be a step forward in the regulatory landscape that we have. And within Syngenta, we're really keen that we have a coherent regulatory landscape that supports the innovative potential of the technology, but also ensures safety for consumers, the environment, and growers that use this technology.
I'm going to get Sarah back. Sarah, help Charlie with the heavy lifting, because I've got a couple of questions for you. This one is from Daniel Rickman. Hi, Daniel. Any breakthroughs being made by NGT in the world yet? Interesting question. Sarah, breakthroughs.
Well, and I think, like Charlie mentioned, many plant breeders, many companies have very strong research pipelines in this area across many crops. I think that they are waiting, particularly in Europe, for the regulations. There is more movement, I think, in some of the Asia-Pacific countries. So Japan is looking at a little bit more of the some of the fresh produce and bringing some of those to market a little bit faster. But I think there's lots of breakthroughs in the research pipeline, and I'd love to talk to you more about them. We have got some IP constraints and things in place, but it's such an exciting technology that I can't wait to bring it into the hands of the growers.
This is Christoph Stennen. Christoph said, "Oh, Charlie, go ahead.
Sorry, sorry, Femi. I was just going to come in there because there are a number of products which have been commercialized in the US, and they're focusing largely on the quality or output traits at the moment. But then there are potential innovations that are just in the development stage in the US by various companies that are addressing morphological traits, which then ultimately go to drive sustainability and yield from fewer inputs. So we are seeing the first of these products come through the pipeline. And as Sarah mentioned, there's also some really innovative approaches, for example, in Japan, where there's been crowdfunding of some novel products from NGTs. So I just wanted to add that, Femi.
I know, that's a good ad. Thank you so much. I was busy looking at the next question. I love this one. All right, Christoph Stetten, when do you think we can launch the first NGT-derived crops in Europe? Who wants to start with that one? Charlie?
Well, maybe if I could take a stab first. I think the first NGT-derived crops in Europe will really depend on the regulatory review, which is ongoing at the moment, and how that regulatory system evolves. Essentially, if Europe decides to regulate NGTs as GMOs, I believe that it will kill the technology, because the barrier to bring those kinds of products to cultivation will be so significant. Within the last 5 years, we've seen the US, Argentina, Brazil, and most recently China publish a very science-based regulatory framework for a technology that is essentially the same as conventional plant breeding. We hope that Europe will do the same, and if that happens, then I think there will be a huge number of examples of this technology coming through breeding pipelines. So I would say in the 2025 to 2030 time horizon, we would see these products entering the market for cultivation in Europe.
Okay. This is
Yeah,
another great question. I'm going to speed around. Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. I'm going to keep your answers quite short so that we can get in a few more questions just before we have to call it a day. Morton wants to know, is Syngenta planning to engage with consumers when introducing NGT products? Will there be a consultation process? Charlie, thoughts? What do you think?
I mean, we would love to talk to any groups about this technology. You know, we're very confident in the safety and the potential of the technology. And I think one of the key things, that was a great video at the start, it's around education, explaining actually how plant breeding works. Sarah described the changes over the last 60 years. We need to allow consumers and society to understand where all of their food comes from, not just this small area of technology, but really understanding that this is essentially harnessing the plant's own systems and harnessing mutations that happen all the time in nature. It would be really great to have that dialogue. The challenge is the scale that we need to do that at, and Syngenta can play an important part in that, but I think industry associations, non-governmental organisations also have a role to play there, and even FEMI journalists like yourself reporting responsibly on the way that this technology works, and a balanced discussion on the risks that we face in society as a whole, not just in where our food comes from.
Charlie, I really like that you said that, because the whole GMO discussion kind of got out of hand, right, with information and misinformation. Do you feel that with NGTs that the agriculture and research fields are much better? Like, how do we shape this? How do we share this with users and also with the public? Do you feel we're in a much better space right now doing that?
Maybe I'll have a go at that question, and then Sarah can come in.
Only because you said journalists like yourself, Femi, and I was like, yeah, that whole GMOs was a hot mess. Like, it's very difficult conversation to have and be accurate and be balanced, etc. So as you suggested that journalists have a role, I'm just going to ask you, do you think the landscape is different right now then?
I do believe the landscape's different. I think if you look at the coronavirus pandemic, actually it shows you how the willingness of regulators in particular, but then society as a whole, to embrace a new technology. We didn't have RNA-based vaccines pre the COVID pandemic. There was a lot of work on them, but they weren't enabled partly because of the regulatory system and partly because of societal acceptance. Now we are facing a crux with the need to drive a more sustainable food system, and that's the responsibility of the whole of society. And this is a technology that can really enable that. So I think the landscape is different. Syngenta is very pro-transparency. We have nothing to hide in terms of this technology, as others working with it don't. So I think that the time is right to have that discussion, and I think that the willingness of some groups to engage in that discussion has changed as well.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, last sentence.
I can only but agree. Yeah, I can only agree. I think we're now having the science discussion, the discussion based on fact, the discussion based on really how things are working, and authorities and society understanding what's really behind it, which I think is really important, versus a phantom or a myth versus some of the real data-driven outcomes that we can show as Syngenta, but also as many other plant breeders can as well. And I think that is the time, and that is what's going to change then in the future on how we can continue to move innovation forward. We need innovation to keep being able to provide enough food and crop production to feed the growing population under in a sustainable way, as we've talked about a lot today, and that requires all of us to be working together.
And we did that today. We all worked together. So many speakers, so many experts, fantastic questions. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Sarah. I could keep you for the next 2 hours because we have more questions coming in, but I will park it there for now. I really appreciate you both. Thank you for your time, for your entire 90 minutes. Thank you for the speakers for sharing their knowledge. And I hope that you feel that we have unleashed innovation, brought to you by Syngenta. Take care.